All right, good morning. This looks like a one-man show, but it is a committee. Welcome to the Atlanta City Council Transportation Committee meeting for Wednesday, August 30th. I'm joined by my colleagues Alex Wan and Byron Amos. We'll need one more for quorum, but that won't keep us from getting started. Why don't we turn public comment? It's the least attractive soundtrack we've had this year. Okay. For a committee meeting. And we're joined by Councilmember Mary Norwood, which is a quorum. Our first order of business will be to adopt the agenda. Motion to adopt by Wan, second by Amos. Please open the vote.
One moment, Mr. Chair. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Great. Our next item is
4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Terrific. We should have 4 votes, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Norwood's a yes.
Signing on.
Yeah. All right. 4 yeas to adopt the agenda, 3 absent. Next item is to approve the minutes. I'll move to do so. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on approving the minutes.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Okay, we've been joined by Councilmember Antonio Lewis. We'll turn to public comment. Who do we have signed up today?
Give us 1 moment.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we have 1 speaker, Mr. James Curtis.
Okay, Mr. Curtis. And I've been having some microphone issues. I don't know if someone can lower the mic for Mr. Curtis. We've had some background noise issues with the mic, Mr. Curtis, so we'll ask if you can to speak as loudly as you feel comfortable. 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, how are you, sir? Thank you for hearing me. Anyway, I just wanted to speak about, again, on February 13th, I was struck by a car. I live at Hardest Buckhead on Petrie Road. And anyway, the side street right next to us is called Petrie Valley Road. And Petrie Valley Road does not have a crosswalk. They do not have a crosswalk, and it has been over 6 months since the accident, and I've not seen anyone come out and look at the intersection except Councilwoman Norwood. She had been the only one I've seen who has come out there. And frankly, I mean, the intersection, my friend who's sitting over there, Josh Rowan, knows the intersection is broken, it's uneven. It damages my wheelchair every time I go over it. And I just would like someone to please look at that intersection. And I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done to improve the intersection, and for some reason nobody wants to look at it. So I just can't press upon the committee to please have someone come look at it ASAP. So there are no more people hurt in that intersection. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. You've been before us a couple times, and a little disappointed the city has not put in a crosswalk. We'll have talked to ATL DOT a little later today. We'll raise that issue with them, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Been joined also by my colleague Marcy Collier Overstreet. Welcome, council member. We have more than a quorum and the best and brightest of the committee this morning, so we're ready to go. Our next item is Section F, presentations and report. Today we have a quarterly report from MARTA. And Mr. Greenwood, my friendly reminder is I request the presentation be kept to no more than 15 minutes so we can get into Q&A.
Order.
And again, as I mentioned, Mr. Curtis, the volume's a little bit lower today because we have some feedback
Sure.
issues. So
How's that? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Chair Faruqi, council members, I want to thank you for inviting MARTA in to do another quarterly briefing. My name is Collie Greenwood, General Manager and CEO for MARTA, joined by our able staff. Many of our executive management team are here, and I want to recognize our board members who are monitoring remotely, Ms. Jennifer Ide, Mr. Jacob Zagabi, and Ms. Sagira Jones. Our agenda will follow this format, and we'll get started with current service, as we like to start generally giving people a lay of the land in terms of what this quarter has been like. So ridership, this is a chart that we put up every quarter, and I'm happy that the narrative every quarter is that we continue to increase versus the quarter before. So in this case, in most modes, we've enjoyed the highest ridership post-COVID to date. In most modes, Subway had a bit of a spike in last September, an acute spike that we have yet to get back to, but we're moving in that direction in each case. Now, we're confident with this, and we take solace in this, but we recognize that we're not in complete control of the ridership picture. I saw an article not that long ago that said about 80% of American workers are still enjoying at least 1 day out of 5 working from home. So that commute pattern is something that MARTA doesn't control. But the things that we do control, we're working hard on. So you'll see evidence of, a lot of our stations are much cleaner, much brighter. We've started turning the lights up in most of our stations, and that's a long, lengthy process that we'll continue to do throughout the year. It's a lot safer. We've talked before about a 17% decrease in Part 1 or serious crimes, 40% decrease in employee assaults. We've talked about the smart restrooms, how we're putting that in every station. Station manager concept is alive and well, with a landlord concept coming out to bring proactive customer service to our customers. All of these things, new buses, new trains, a network redesign, and all these other initiatives aimed at improving ridership for those things that are inside of our control, not the least of which is the bus stop amenities, and you're familiar with that program where we're bringing 50 new amenities to the city of Atlanta every year. Here's the FY23 status. 36 are already installed, 14 under construction. The construction process is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 weeks. So in that amount of time, all the FY23 amenities will have been installed. And I'm happy to report that the FY24 amenities are well ahead of the curve, with 15 already under construction. So what does this mean? Here's just another example. A simplified picture is worth 1,000 words, but for the 10 people that board weekly at James Jackson Parkway and Northwest Drive, they can tell you that this means a lot. It means protection from the rain overhead and underfoot. It means protection from the sun. It means a place to sit, a place for refuse, and some maps and information available. Council member Shipman asked us last meeting if there's anything that City of Atlanta could do to help with the garbage at bus shelters, and so we went back and took a look at the situation, and quite frankly, happy to report that there is a program already in place. MARTA is in partnership with the Keep Atlanta Beautiful program. So at non-sheltered stops that don't have benches and don't have shelters, City of Atlanta has that responsibility to maintain cleanliness at those locations, and it's a simple 311 call. So we're all eyes and ears. If you see a situation like that, dial 311, please, and we'll make sure that the appropriate, or City of Atlanta will make sure that the appropriate resources are dispatched. And to those other stops that do have amenities, benches and shelters, we have a 24-hour-a-day hotline that people can call. we'd ask you just the numbers posted in the shelter, the shelter number is posted so that you can give that shelter number and our resources will be properly dispatched to that location. But that number for all listening is 866-535-0937. That number again, 866-535-0937. So those are the, basically the two options that we can continue to use. I don't know that we have a slide that talks about it, and I'm not sure that we've mentioned it in the past, but you see the bus stop, the traditional MARTA flag of the bus stops. We're now in the process of changing those over into a more international design, a design that's shared throughout our region and quite frankly throughout the world. So it'll have a customer-facing blade on it with information that is in Braille and raised lettering, and it'll have a QR code where you can simply take your phone, scan the QR code, and it'll tell you when the next bus is on arrival. So more to come on that. We've already completed all of our regional bus stops, and we're now starting on the bus stop. So you'll see more of that. 183 Niskey Lake Road, just an update there. Just to let everyone know that we continue to work on that. MARTA has devised a reverse routing, so it's somewhat safer, but there are still pinch points that have to be worked through. So our safety department met, I think it was August 15th, with internal processes. We've gone back to the Atlanta DOT. They have committed to some striping, but they're also aware that there are some physical changes that have to happen, particularly at those pinch points. So at the last meeting was in the past few weeks. I'm not sure if there was feedback from DOT, but we know that they have the issue and we know that they continue to progress towards it. In the meantime, as of early August, there were at least 517 MARTA Connect trips to people living along that portion of the route where they get a free ride to connect to the service. More MARTA Atlanta program is up next, and we talked about the enhanced bus service last time, and I recognize, of course, that there was a lot of concern about what we thought was the amount of spending that was going on for enhanced bus. You'll remember the last time we explained and showed you just how that level of service had built up, but it had also come right back down to no more than about 2.3% more service than the initial base, which is back in 2016. So what we have now is a reference document for you. We've got hard copies here. We've also sent it in online, and it's something that you council members can have and hold and keep and refer to when you're talking to any constituents if they're wondering, where that bus service was. You'll get a better sense of what exactly the bus service was. It'll tell you what the level of service was, where the points of interest were, where it went, the number of people that it served back in the base years, and then it'll also tell you about how much service was enhanced between 2017 and 2018, and then finally it'll tell you where we were as of April 2023. So in each case for all of our routes, it details the rise and fall of the level of service, bringing it back to the about 2.3% overall increase from the base. So the back of that manual also has some commonly used terms in transit planning as well as a table that outlines each and every route numerically for the annualized hours of service. So that's a ready reference point for each of you. Ridership forecasting, this is just a quick snapshot to identify. People have been asking, do we not have a sense of, how much ridership some of our projects are expected to generate? And we do, but the problem that as we've said, is that we have it under the old model, which is the ARC's activity-based model. So you'll see it there, average daily boardings 2019 to 2021 for a semblance of the projects inside of the city of Atlanta. It tells you what the average daily boardings were. And the value here is it gives you an order of magnitude relative to each other in terms of those projects. On the right, it tells you that Clifton Corridor is the only one that we've been able to, at this point, convert over to the stops model, which is a different way of counting the number of people that we project will be using the service. So as we complete the stops modeling for the other projects, we will fill in those blanks, but that's the existing ridership. And then the chart on the left is really to give everyone peace of mind that our numbers still fare very, very well and compete well with other projects across the country that have enjoyed small starts funding. The More MARTA program spending, now this is just a slide that we've committed to bringing in on a regular basis and just really outlining where the spending is happening. I do have, really there's not much to report on this one, but it's just a commitment to continue with the number of, with the open-faced reporting that you've asked for. So this is our quarterly snapshot on the More MARTA Atlanta Capital Program. You can see that Cleveland and Metropolitan ART have advanced to right-of-way acquisition, and that's reflected in the spend. A few project updates for you. One of the important parts of our rapid service, one of the most important components, of course, is the vehicle that we plan to use. So this is just to give everyone a sneak peek at the things that the concepts that we'll be bringing into those vehicles. So 60-foot battery articulated bus, very quiet, very environment responsible. Doors on both sides, like a subway car, level platform boarding like a subway car. Device charging ports inside the vehicle, bike racks inside the vehicle, wheelchair holds, and upcoming stop information. So you get images in all of those photographs of the types of components that we'll be working with New Flyer to bring into the rapid service vehicles. 5-point station transformation, just keep people abreast of the fact that we are moving along on this project. Here's a selected design of option 9A, which improves the pedestrian connections and the bus to rail transfers and keeps important community features like the station soccer pitch. The heavy architecture of the old canopy is switched out for something that's more refined, something more modern. A lot of the community spaces are enhanced, and the station's generally brighter, cleaner, and more user-friendly, with space for programmed activities going on as we move through. So we continue to work with our partners at the FTA, and we continue to move that 5 points plan along as we go. And one of the things that is important to point out here is that when we originally envisioned doing this project, we were going to keep everything open for pedestrian flow. At some point several months ago, we determined that if we were going to have a chance of making the improvements here also work for us during 2026 World Cup, we were going to have to expedite this schedule. And the expedited schedule means that while we'll maintain train movement and train transfers north, east, south, and west on the lower level, bus access and pedestrian access to this station will be curtailed for the duration of for that phase of of construction work at the mezzanine and surface levels. So that means that if you're planning to use a bus at 5 points, you would be getting that bus at Garnett or at Georgia State, neighboring and adjacent stations for pedestrian traffic. So pedestrian traffic would be closed in order to expedite and get this project done in time for 2026 World Cup. And then some project on the Cleveland Avenue and Metropolitan ART, just good work being done here all along. I want to say that on Industry Day on June 28th, we had 18 disadvantaged business enterprise outfits attend Industry Day. Really good engagement on that. And we'd also like to thank Councilman Lewis for his leadership in passing that right-of-way acquisition legislation that the full council adopted last week. We expect to award a construction contract for these two projects this fall and have shovels in the ground early next year. Also want to talk about the Streetcar East extension, and the streetcar project has moved into final design with the MARTA Board's approval of a contract with HDR. One of the initial tasks that HDR will complete, of course, is a review of the existing streetcar operation, and they'll make recommendations for improvement there. We're working with Atlanta Beltline on a joint public engagement plan, and we will, of course, keep everyone abreast of that progress as we move forward. Campbellton Corridor is in its planning phase. We're close to 100% dedicated lanes with the adoption of an aerial connection from Barge Road Park and Ride to Greenbrier Mall. So the inclusion of this multi-use trail will also help pedestrians and cyclists make safer and easier connections across the I-285. The FTA has opened applications for grants to do transit-oriented development planning along Fitzroy transit corridors, and MARTA and the City of Atlanta will apply together for funds to advance the work that has already been done along Campbellton by identifying specific implementation recommendations. The grant application is due at the end of September. Over to Holmes, where there's some exciting things happening there. We're making progress on the TOD with the goal to release an RFP by late this year or first quarter of 2024. Thank you to Council Members Boone and Bond for their assistance in making sure that the public stayed engaged throughout the entire process. We had at least 6 well-attended engagement meetings which informed the development program. Bus network redesign, I mentioned that earlier, so this is still making its way through the process, and we're expecting good results by the end of 2024. One note here, and it's just a plea to everyone to please make sure that everyone that's associated with your constituencies remains abreast of what's going on here. There's a website at the bottom, MARTA 2040 Next Gen Bus. It's important work that's being done. We had a series of technical workshops and public and stakeholder engagements planned for last month, but the uptake was such, it was low, and it was such that we thought we don't want to go without the group. You know, they say you can go faster if you go alone, but you can go further if you go together. And so we thought it was important to reschedule. And so we've got some new workshops scheduled for October 16th to 27th. We really want people to engage and make sure that their voices are heard. This is when you think about Niski Lake, for example, and the concern that was raised when we straightened out a bus route and forewent that's just one community. This bus network redesign is going to affect all the communities that we serve, and so it's important that everyone is remaining abreast as we do the planning as opposed to getting involved at the last minute. So additional good news to share with you. On that front, we are finally complete with our contract negotiations. It was a long process, but it was a good process with a good result. We firmly believe that the people that take people where they want to go today and tomorrow need to be celebrated and rewarded. And so this is the strongest contract in MARTA memory, with a 16% salary increase over 3 years. The majority of that increase, there we go. The majority of that increase, 10%, comes in the first year alone. So a really strong contract. To the right is a graphic that we shared with the employees to really bring home for them that it's a total benefit package. It's not just your salary, it's the fact that you've got a lifetime pension, that there's an attendance bonus structure, that there's paid family leave. We can add in there, I'm not sure if it's in there now, but we can add in that our employees enjoy a pass for free MARTA service, as do their families. And when you put it all together, it's a very strong package, and we celebrate our employees with that. I'm just pleased that this has now been ratified by ATU Local 732 and by the MARTA board. Station soccer at East Lake. This is the 6th of 10 planned soccer pitches. It's under construction now on the north side of East Lake Station, and I hope to see most of you out at the opening this fall. It's really serves as an amenity to the surrounding community, as well as an early activation tool for our transit-oriented development program. The City of Atlanta Employee Fair Program is underway, so we had new Breeze Mobile 2.0 activation that allows for easier administration of the employee program. So it's a 6-month pilot that's aimed at supporting about 1,000 employees. 985 have been enrolled already. 44% have completed their pre-pilot survey, and 22% have taken at least one ride. So we're inspired by that, and we're hoping for good things as the program continues. And finally, 50 years of hip hop. We wanted to just, acknowledge the 50 years of hip-hop celebrations that have been going on around the city and recognize that MARTA has also done a number of things with staff and customers to recognize the milestone. I believe we brought some commemorative passes for you all, and so if we haven't handed them out already, we will do that as a keepsake to this important milestone in our city. And with that, Chair Faruqi, I return the floor to you.
Thank you, CEO Greenwood. I'll note just the next item we'll be addressing is a public hearing item. So if folks are here for public comment on that item, you can sign up over there. I have a couple questions. I'll turn to my colleagues, who I'm sure have some as well. The first question is, appreciate the enhanced bus service booklet. It's very well organized and done and clear to understand. What it doesn't have, at least I haven't seen it, and which is, I know, the subject of the ongoing audit, is how much more moderate funding was spent on each of these enhancements? Is that something that can be provided at some point, or whether electronically or otherwise?
So we have talked about the financial impact of the More MARTA improvements separately, and we went through that in detail in the Q2 budget, but I don't believe we have it broken down by route. It's been a system improvement. I can check with our planning team to see if there's something by route. Carrie, you have anything on that?
Good morning, Carrie Rocha. I'm MARTA's Chief Capital Officer. We don't track the data by route in terms of the dollars, right? So you'll see the annualized based on the schedule there. Kind of two camps here. One is the planned service. And so what you're looking at in that book was kind of overall when you added, let's say, hours that went from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. on a particular route that might have earlier started at 8 a.m., we added a certain number of hours. And so you're seeing the aggregate estimate of what we added. The actuals are, again, collected by NTD data that we put into our More MARTA report. So I don't have, on an actual route, last week, what were the hours or miles expended on that particular route, because we don't have the means to capture that.
There is an actual real cost associated with increased service, whether it's frequency, timing, et cetera. So somewhere there's theoretically, or not theoretically, but actually there's a dollar figure associated with increased or decreased service.
And you absolutely could back into that.
Okay.
So we know, year by year, what every hour and every mile is costing us.
Okay.
And so you're seeing the estimates in front of you where we could do a calculation, say, adding those extra 3 hours of service is adding X amount of dollars out of the program. We could absolutely do that.
Okay. I think it's something we'd like to, for the full picture, we'll need to know what's been spent on each of these.
Yeah, we'll continue to update on what's been spent against the More MARTA program.
Okay.
So we just closed our fiscal year. We do not have the NTD data on hours and miles yet for fiscal year 23, and we'll, in the next More MARTA report, do our update through June.
And the last question I have, and then I'll turn to my colleagues, Councilmember Lewis is up next, is on slide 11, the ridership forecasting for More MARTA Atlanta Tier 1 projects. On the left, you have a few other cities and daily link trips. Is the numbers on the left from other cities, is that projected or actual?
I believe that's projected daily link trips based on the service.
So it is apples to apples. I thought maybe those were actual. Helpful. All right, Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Chair Faruqi. And first, I want to ask a question about the same book. When we have enhancement levels that have decreased, like on Route 55, on page 58, are we looking at changes? Are we going to adjust because of that, or what?
Can I I'll take it. I just want to get a copy of the book. Oh, do you have a copy?
And I was trying to go, we just received this as you were speaking, so I didn't get a chance to go through it yet.
Can you hand me a copy? Yeah. Give them all to you. Okay, so your question, Councilmember Lewis, is that we saw a change from fall of 2016 to fall of 2019?
Like, now that we have this in front of us and we see the numbers, are we going to now adjust back or go a different way? What are
No,
we going to do with the
the-
results of this?
The adjustments have all been made. So this is just a reference document for you so that when you're speaking to constituents or to us or anyone, you know the story about what happened in 2016, 2019, and 2022. So this is after the fact, kind of telling you. So in the case that you raise, it says in the fall of 2016, we had 16,000 average weekly boardings. That dropped to 13,000, and in the fall of 2022, that dropped to 10,000. So that means 2,000 savings of 2,000 annualized revenue hours, which is actually the direction that council had said we wanted to go because we felt that we had gone too far in terms of adding service. So this breaks it down by council districts, as well as by neighborhoods served and points of interest, and it gives you a complete accounting of each of the routes through the years in terms of what's happened.
And what I'm trying to understand is where it has the negative 31 trips per week
Yes,
on enhancement levels. What is that saying?
that means that we've reduced service.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
The questions I wanted to ask about are on the page 11 of the forecasting.
Okay.
We're able to, I know you said that we used a different numbering system.
Yeah, the stops model.
And so I'm wondering, since we've already started or completed Summerhill BRT, Cleveland Avenue ART is on the way, so is Metropolitan Parkway ART. Why haven't we been able to do the average daily boardings for those as we've been able to do for Clifton?
Right, and that's the point I was trying to make is this stops model is new. It's something that's new across the country, and all agencies that used to use the model that the ARC has adopted and blessed throughout the years, which is the activity-based model, we're changing from that. So it takes time to convert and reassess and go through the modeling on each of these. These are projected, right? I mean, these routes don't exist. So it's a confluence of the projection plus the change in methodology. And so it simply takes time. But my commitment to you was as soon as each of these numbers are ready for each of these projects, we'll fill those in.
And I think my question is, because they are ahead of Clifton, right? Right now in process and progress, why do we have because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have Calmerton Road, Clifton Quarter, Summerhill, Cleveland Avenue, and Metropolitan. And which of the three, Calmerton and Clifton are on the same timeline?
Yeah.
And so we don't have and we also have a streetcar east, but we don't have the projections for anywhere else except Clifton.
Correct.
And so because Clifton is behind Metropolitan, Cleveland Avenue, and Summerhill, why don't we have the projections for them?
We just don't. I mean, I can't explain to you why that is. We just don't. But as soon as we do, and we'll have them long before the service launches, but we don't.
And I think my question is, because we are doing those before them, why wouldn't we project the daily boardings for them before the one that's coming last?
Putting those routes in place is the civil work, the shovels in the ground, all that stuff is happening, and they're ahead of schedule than the other. This is an administrative projection tool that's being blessed across the country, and it's just not on the same timeline as we are with the route development. So to answer your question, they remain ahead of Clifton Corridor, no doubt. But the administrative math hasn't caught up to it. So when it does, we'll fill it in. that is not preventing us from progressing on those routes.
And just to ask a different question, but stay on the same topic, is there a reason why we chose to do the daily boarding projections for Clifton, even though it's last, according to the other ones, over Summerhill, Cleveland Avenue, and Metropolitan?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. My next statement was around the labor agreement. I come out of the labor movement. Your labor agreement is talked about nationwide right now. And when you think about ATU, Local 732, and the folks that they have there and the agreement you put together, your pension is the strongest pension in the state of Georgia. The funding of it looks stronger than anywhere in the southeast of America. So I want to commend you on that labor agreement and on hashing out and coming to, because I know it was tough on both sides. But I want to say I appreciate what you've done for the people in Atlanta, and I can't wait to see it continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. It's really important to us. We actually consider this something that's good for the employees, and it's also good for management. you watched us struggle trying to raise the amount of people that are coming into work for MARTA, and we think that this will go a long way. We think that, raising the awareness of the pension and, there's not that many jobs in the city that offer a lifelong pension to begin with, let alone the benefits and the increase in pay. And so we think that with this, we will, and I want to talk a little bit about the structured attendance bonus. That's going to encourage our employees, because we said in as much as we're nearly 100% FTE people back to work in terms of what we need hired, we're still struggling with a 20 to 25% absenteeism rate amongst these same represented employees. So we've structured in the contract that if you come to work more regularly, you'll get a little bit more money. So we're hoping that that helps us better serve the public as well.
And once again, congratulations to you and Britt and the folks over at Local 732 ATU for hashing that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Juan.
Thank you, Chairman Faruqi. So it seems like all eyes are on page 11 in terms of the ridership forecast, and I appreciate that. And quite frankly, the Clifton Corridor is one of interest to me because it lies in District 6, and obviously those numbers look pretty remarkable. I think it affirms what folks have been saying in the community about that being a large employment center. But I'm really excited that I'm sitting next to Councilmember Collier Overstreet here, and the fact that Campbellton is the next one in terms of numbers, because it again enhances and underscores the narrative about we should be building transit to connect opportunities to where, for people looking for opportunities, to where the opportunities actually are. So just wanted to make that comment. Did I hear you correctly, though, that we are going to move away from the average daily boardings, the ARC activity-based model, and move towards the stops model? So,
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, because I was going to. The question I had was more about the methodology around the activity based, because the time frame straddles the COVID year, and I didn't know if COVID would impact that analysis or not.
Yeah, I don't have details there. I will say I agree with you, and I have heard that the advent of COVID did throw a wrench into the modeling during using the ABM model, the activity-based model. That's, I suspect, part of the reason for the delay in having a good, robust stops modeling network. But yes, we are moving away from the ABM and into stops and together across the country, so that we'll have apples to apples comparisons moving forward.
And the stops model approach will kind of factor in the COVID impact,
Correct.
right? Okay,
Correct.
Right. Thank you. That was my only question. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to start off by saying thank you for the last, I think, Beyonce concert. MARTA, PD, and APD worked together to build a bus bridge to move people rapidly out of Vine City and getting them back to their homes. So I don't know if that is the reason we've seen the decrease in cars, but I can say what you guys are doing, the signs placed by ADOT, the enforcement of APD, we have definitely seen a different change in the traffic around the dome. So I want to say the bend. So I want to say thank you for that. Then also looking at your capital expenditures, page 12, you can spend over $200,000 on Streetcar West. Please don't spend no more up on this current structure. I'm gonna say it again, I do not support it. The neighborhood is not in support of it. So we definitely need to get together and hold a conversation about it when we decide to come Streetcar West. Last but not least, if 5 Points is your #1 user during the World Cup, it is because that's where the lines meet. The #1 station during the World Cup will be Vine City, just as it is on any other event day of the Benz or the Congress Center. At the last conversation we had to this conversation, Vine City is still scheduled to be redone in 2028, I believe. We need to move that up because we do not need to embarrass the city by sending the world into Vine City Station the way that it looks now. So we can talk offline if need be.
Yeah, let's do that.
We need to adjust.
I'll take a good look at Vine City. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no flexibility in our schedule to take a good look, but you make a good point in that in as much as 5 Points is the heart of the structure, Vine City is heavily used. and we'll take a good look at what we can do to make sure that 2026, which comes a lot quicker than some of us realize, is an opportunity for us to put our best foot forward.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. Ms. Norwood.
Yes, thank you, sir, for your presentation. When I look at the big book on page 7, District 8 is where there is the least amount of service. We all understand that because of the way that we were added into the city much later. But we don't have commuter buses. We don't have any way for people to get to work. If they're coming from Cobb County, if they're coming from Gwinnett County, there's no way for them to get there. So I understand that we're not talking about MARTA per se, but everyone here has major, wonderful plans for MARTA in their council districts. My wonderful plan is let's get transit. Please have MARTA be a leader in talking with Cobb, talking with Gwinnett, talking with ARC. The idea that year after year, we're just left out. There is no way for any of our employees in that major employment center to get to work. So if you can help us with that, that would really be important. I don't need MARTA buses all over the streets. They're already so clogged, that will make no sense. But we do need to use our interstates and our regional ability to get people to the Buckhead Central Business District.
Thank you, Ms. Norwood. Carrie, just wondering, is top end 285, is that touching Region 8? Yeah, so there's a project that's underfoot that's being studied, which is a top end 285, which is part of kind of like the northern arc, if you will, bad term, but kind of combining our stations at East End and West End and doing that top end arc. And so if that comes to fruition, if all the stars align, that kind of service in District 8 will serve your purpose, but we'll continue to look at that.
Okay, so that will use our interstate system to get people through Buckhead without going on our neighborhood streets?
Interstate system, yes. Through Buckhead, we'd have to check closely before I can commit to that here. But it's a natural arc that does serve District 8 as well as all the other top end locations.
Okay, I'd like to get together with y'all and,
Sounds good.
and get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Norwood. Mr. Lewis.
And I was thinking about because of that question, the future, 3401 Brown Mill Road is the maintenance bus facility center. Brown Mill Road is the MARTA maintenance bus facility center. And so we have a lot of buses that are coming over there to get service. Brown Mill Road is, because of the fixes of Metropolitan Parkway, is now the worst street in my district. And it's partly because of that. So I would like to sit down with you, we can talk about ways in which we can fix the area in front of Brown Mill Road where the road is torn up because of some of the heavy equipment that's riding down it.
So improvement to the city streets at Browns Mill in that location?
Around 3401 Brown Mill Road, the maintenance bus facility.
Thank you.
Ms. Overstreet.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. Just want to weigh in on the Breeze Mobile 2.0. I'm glad we're finally here, and definitely glad that we are taking a streamlined approach. Just want to make sure that that you know that we appreciate you moving on to a regional look so that everyone can access MARTA without the tokens and all of those things that we used to hold on to. Also got conversation, you know, being an ATO Board of Directors member, I actually heard that there's a need for us to be able to use our watches.
Yes.
So if we could look into how far we are from that, that'll be great. I know we have the QR code, and, I mean, the scanning capabilities now. All of that is really amazing. Like it really is a regional streamlined thing. It's not just about Atlanta. So, you know, kudos to you all for that. And just where do you think we are with that? The next up technology.
Thank you, Councilmember. The watches, the swipes, the pendants, the phones, any NFC-enabled device is part of our structured plan for AFC 2.0. So it's automated fare collection 2.0. It's already underway. We've already, I think we still have to go to our board to get it blessed, but we've already made a decision in terms of which agency is going to be doing the work for us. And that is the process whereby it's open. So it's not just a regional openness, it's an international openness. Now, a visitor from any country in the world can come in and use their cell phone, use their watch, use their credit card, and access the system. So that is well underway, and we should be announcing the winner of that contract shortly.
Oh, that's excellent. Thanks for updating me on that. And I've been receiving regular meetings about and updates about the Campbellton BRT and the new transit hub and everything. So thank you for that also.
Welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. All right, we'll now move to item G, public hearing items. Do we
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on the motion to enter public hearing.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The public hearing is now open. Item number 1, 2023-01406, an ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos as substituted by Transportation Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee to rename the north-south portion of North Yards Boulevard Northwest and Yancey Street Northwest to waive certain provisions of Section 138-8 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Great. Today's public hearing is related to a city auditor report on Department of Aviation's plane train expansion project. Is someone from the auditor's office here to present to us? Come on up.
Mr. Chair, we're taking item section G, public hearing items.
Oh, apologies. I'm all over the place. Yeah. Who's chairing this meeting? Yeah.
I believe no one's signed in for public comment.
No public comment for item G. Yeah.
We got one.
Oh, we got one.
One.
I think, do you have a public comment on this item? No, we're good. Yeah. Oh, you wanted to speak. Oh, DJ, come on up. Sorry.
David didn't come get the sheet, so.
Yeah. 3 minutes. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is DJ Terry. In my work capacity, I work for Councilmember Byron Amos as his Chief of Staff. But I'm here speaking in my personal capacity as a member of the Georgia Tech Black Alumni Organization. And so today, I just want to speak on behalf of this item. I didn't want this moment to go by without speaking Mr. Yancey's name. And so Mr. Ronald Yancey actually was the first black graduate of Georgia Tech in June of 1965. And so I'm going to read a couple of things about his life. If people didn't know, Mr. Yancey was born in Atlanta. He grew up next door to someone named Puerto Rico Whitehead, who worked for the Georgia Tech Athletic Association, and they worked for Coach William Alexander and the infamous Coach Bobby Dodd. Whitehead brought home game day programs for the young Ron, who knew he wanted to go to Tech and become an engineer. Ultimately, he was rejected from going to Georgia Tech, so he went to Morehouse College, and he majored in math and physics. Morehouse didn't have an engineering program, and so in the spring of 1961, he applied again to Georgia Tech with 15 other black young men, and again, he was rejected. And so on the support of his mom supported his goals, and she requested an appointment with the registrar. They eventually got it, and they told Ron that he did not fit into the Tech model for success. And so after another letter, after another request, and after another meeting followed up, they kept going. He went back to Morehouse. He was aware that Tech eventually did accept 3 other black students, that one of which was not him. And so after he completed his second year at Morehouse in the spring of 1962, he applied again. He was conditionally accepted if he would retake the SAT and pass the summer chemistry class, and he did. And so of the first 3 black students, he was still one. Only one was still there, but he came as well. Ronald Yancey eventually prevailed to graduate from Georgia Tech as the first black student in June of 1965. He crossed the stage, accepted his diploma, and his dream was finally realized that he was a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. What a great story, both of darkness and in light. So, you want to make a motion on this? Do we? Yeah, motion to make close public comment by Juan, second by Lewis. Please open the vote. We're good. Sorry.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The public hearing is now closed.
All right, Section H.
Mr. Chair, we have to move this paper forward.
Motion approved by Amos, second by Faroki. Please open the vote. All right. Second by Juan. Please open the vote. Yeah.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. This takes us to Section H, Communications. Item number 223C, 5090, a communication from Danielle Hampton, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report, Plane Train.
Right. Please introduce yourself, and I know you have a presentation in front of us, and the floor is yours.
Rebecca Robinson, Performance Audit Supervisor, City Auditor's Office. It's just read to advance, right? Today I will share the findings and recommendations of our performance audit of the Department of Aviation's plane train. The team for this project included Amanda Noble, City Auditor, Stephanie Jackson, Deputy City Auditor, Michael Jones, Audit Manager, Senior Performance Auditors, Lindsay Kuhn and Amani Adams, and myself. We would like to thank the aviation employees for their assistance throughout the audit. We undertook this audit at the Department of Aviation's request due to the inherent risks associated with a third-party contractor, in this case Alstom, formerly Bombardier, managing the project, the importance of the service to airport operations, and the sizable dollar amount of the contractual agreement, which is over $22 million annually. The objective that guided this audit is: are controls in place to ensure Alstom complies with contract requirements, particularly in terms of performance incentives, maintenance requirements, wages, overtime pay, and allowable expenses. The scope of our audit was fiscal year 2022. Some of our audit methods included reviewing the plane train contract and budget, legislation related to the plane train, and Alstom standard operating procedures, analyzing data related to invoicing, reporting requirements, wages, and preventative maintenance, and interviewing aviation and Alstom staff to understand processes, assess risks, and document controls. Findings overview. The contractor Alstom has met its preventative maintenance requirements and has not exceeded the contract's annual amount, but we found that the city has been managing the contract by relying on the vendor's procedures rather than closely reviewing reports provided by the vendor. Our findings include: the city does not have standard operating procedures for managing the plane train contract. Alstom exceeded annual overtime by 103%, and the city did not enforce contract terms for overtime approval. Data management follows best practices, but system controls could improve. Overtime burden costs could be higher than necessary, and the city should provide sole source justification. The city does not have procedures for managing the contract. Although Alstom has standard operating procedures for operating and maintaining the plane train, the city does not have procedures for managing the contract. City procedures could help identify problems earlier. For example, we found that the labor cost of 3 Alstom employees were missing from the June 2022 invoice. Alstom corrected this error in December 2022 after we alerted the contractor of it. Aviation told us that it is currently working on drafting procedures. The city did not enforce contract terms for overtime approval. We found that in fiscal year 2022, Alstom exceeded its overtime budget of $123,000 by $127,000, 103% overage. However, it did not exceed its annual $22 million budget. Approximately $30,000 of the $127,000 should have been charged to other contracts the city holds with Alstom. The other approximately $100,000 of the overage was due to plane train understaffing. The contract requires that Alstom obtain prior written approval for overtime, but aviation provided overtime pre-approval forms for 8 of 12 months in our scope. Overtime hours exceeded the pre-approved amounts on the 8 forms that we received, and 4 of 8 forms did not have the required signature of the city representative. Data management follows best practices, but system controls can improve. Alstom uses SIMS, or Site Information Management System, an automated system, to operate and maintain the plane train, which is consistent with best practices. SIMS collects data on performance that is used to determine incentives for system availability and reliability. However, Alstom enters some data for performance delays and preventative maintenance manually, which increases the risk of error. Overtime burden costs could be higher than necessary. The city was unaware of Alstom's overtime burden expense. The overtime burden is based on a 2018 consultant's analysis undertaken when Bombardier was still party to the contract. The rate includes a 401k retirement plan and defined benefits contribution plan. Neither the city nor Alstom could provide written support for the overtime hours being included in the retirement plan. Contractor met preventative maintenance requirements, but Alstom and the city could strengthen the process. Alstom completed all scheduled preventative maintenance work orders within the required 90 days. However, we found an issue with preventative maintenance data collection, reporting, and oversight, including minor discrepancies between Alstom's data and the manually created report that Alstom provides to the city, which could increase the risk of inaccurate reporting. Also, these reports provide data for the month, resulting in the city being unable to verify whether preventative maintenance was completed within the 90-day grace period. Aviation employees told us that they rely on Alstom to inform them if maintenance is not completed in 90 days. Cities should provide sole source justification. Sole source cost reimbursable contracts like this one are inherently risky. To mitigate associated risks, best practices recommend due diligence posting of intent to sole source, timely market research processes, limiting the term of the contract, and requiring thorough justification for sole source requests. We were unable to obtain the required sole source justification form for this contract from procurement, but legislation for the current contract suggested that it was sole source because Westinghouse, now Alstom, built the trains and the system to operate them, so the contractor possessed specialized expertise. Recommendations. In order to better manage the plane train contract, we issued 2 recommendations, one to aviation and one to procurement. The departments both agreed with the recommendations. First, the airport general manager should create internal standard operating procedures that would allow the department to track and monitor all requirements and deliverables in the contract with Alstom. Second, if a competitive procurement is not possible, the chief procurement officer should document thorough justification for a sole source procurement as required by city code and ensure that the term of the sole source agreement is reasonable. The full report is available at the link provided, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the audit office's work on this. It's important oversight for the city, including city council. Mr. Wan.
I was hoping someone would go before me. A quick question, and then I want to lean in a little bit more on one of the topics you raised. You mentioned the overtime overage, and then I'm assuming the associated, what you call burden on that in terms of benefits.
Overtime burden?
Yeah. Do we have kind of a quantified magnitude of what? Yeah, a dollar amount associated with what that burden is. I'm just trying to get my head around what that number looks like.
Go ahead.
Amanda Noble, City Auditor. It was relatively small in relation to the $22 million contract value.
But it, I mean, I don't know what the factor is. So I think you identified it was 100. Well, okay, hang on a second. It was a $100,000 plus over what the budget was, right? What's the factor usually? Is it like 1.5? Is it 3.0 in terms of the actual burden? Okay.
Yeah, I think if we didn't put it in the report, I can definitely get that for you, but I can't remember off the top of my head. It was relatively small.
Okay, all right. And am I correct in understanding that it was 8 of the 12 months you actually had the correct approval? So it was just 4 of the 12 months that we did not have their approval, aside from,
I think we had the forms in 8 of the 12 months, but not all the forms had the correct signature.
Okay. Ooh, okay, all right. Okay, that's really kind of more of a minor to me. Not minor, it's important, but it is kind of paperwork documentation piece of it. I'm more concerned about the sole source side of the house and your report. First question is, I think you said that Westinghouse now has the contract, and in the current legislation that we have approved with that, all the sole source justification is there. Is that correct?
There is justification in the legislation, just the form itself is missing.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's problematic, number one. Number two is, I agree that anytime we do a sole source, there should be a justification piece of it. I'd like to hear from someone from procurement as to what the safeguards are now with this. But more importantly, we wouldn't have known this had there not been an audit. So how many others may be out there that we aren't aware of because we're not auditing every single sole source contract that we have? So I don't know who can speak to that and get me comfortable with, the processes and procedures that are in place now. Obviously we have a role in that when we see sole source legislation come through, and we'll have our eye on that now going forward, but I'm thinking retroactively what's going on with that.
So I think for purposes now, I want to keep questions to the audit office. Once we exhaust questions with the auditor's office,
Okay.
if there's someone from procurement or aviation wants to stand up and just give some quick reflections, we can do that. But
Yeah, those are my question. My only question. So it's just a procurement side.
And one of the issues with this one is it was a 20-year contract, right? So it's the file is gone for the original contract. Nobody could locate it.
Okay, but okay. I mean, that's fair. But again, I just
Well, that's a problem.
yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chairman. So I don't know if I don't see anybody.
yeah, I'll
from procurement.
poke around here and see what we can do. Thank you, Councilmember Wan. Any other questions for the auditors before we move forward? Okay, thank you for the report. We appreciate it. It raises some pressing questions. Is there anyone in the room from procurement that would like to speak to Councilmember Wan's question? And if not, yeah, if not, we'll. There's someone coming. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Dana Greer, Deputy Chief Procurement Officer for the Department of Procurement, and I can try to address your question. In respect to the compliance, we are trying to put in strategies where we're checking the files and doing retrospective audits. We agree with the recommendations in the Department of Audit's reports, and we're looking forward to how we're going to establish going forward with the plane train contract, which expires in the next 2 years. We've already started the conversations about how we're going to establish either going out for a solicitation or documenting the need to continue with the existing provider.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think we'll continue having conversations with CPO in finance exec, but you know, I do think it may be worth your while and our while that to take a look and pick a threshold. There might be a dollar threshold or a year threshold by which we just need to go ahead and check those particular contracts to make sure everything, all the documentation is in place. And then I know that there are safeguards that CPO is putting in going forward, and I appreciate that. But again, I'm more raising the question about this came about because of a specific audit. How many others are out there that were not?
And that's fair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lewis.
I think my question was around the overtime issue as well. How did we need, was it like people that we needed to work just unexpected? Like, for example, if we have, I'm just using public works, and someone from either the airport or the airport probably would be the best people to answer. Like, if we have trees fall down in the city of Atlanta, we have to have our public work staff work overtime for probably a week or so to clear them up. And so is it that kind of case where you had some issues that you had to have overtime?
So, B.B. O'Doherty, Airport General Manager. So, two questions that I want to answer. I want to answer Councilmember one question first about sole source. So, whenever the aviation department does a sole source, the justification under the legislation is presented to the body. This is a long contract. It's a very specialized contract. I work at two different airports. We had competitive procurement for the specialized system, and we eventually revert back to the manufacturer. We have two specialized systems, a Mitsubishi system and a Bombardier system. And to find that specialization, along with the engineering and stuff that goes with this, is very, very difficult in the general public. And we have established a very high level of reliability requirement because this is the lifeline of the airport. And this system moves over 96 million passengers each year. And our reliability rating for this is 99.6%. So, and a sole source, we will do, and I agree with the recommendation, talk to the CPO, and we will do due diligence. And the next time we go out for this here. The overtime is used because of the constraint in attracting the appropriate level of FTEs to maintain the system in its current reliability mandate that we put in the contract for this vendor. And so we authorize them to use overtime to fill those labor gaps so that the system does not go down and we maintain that 99.6% reliability.
And so that gives them, the overtime, it gives them flexibility.
Yes.
And so I know I noticed that they didn't exceed their budget of $22 million, right?
No,
so
so it's within the confine of the labor costs associated with this, and as long as they did not exceed it, we authorize it.
So we're basically expecting them to go over in overtime.
In certain cases, yes, depending on the status of the system, and if we have, because our system are aging right now, we have to replace 49 cars, right? And so it takes more labor force to maintain those cars, to maintain that reliability. And so we expect that they will use overtime because they just can't attract the full labor hours they need to maintain the reliability of the system.
And I think the most glaring thing to me in this report was the overtime. But it's something that we have to do from what you're saying, like similar to when trees fall down in the city of Atlanta and people have to work. So that was the thing I saw in the report the most. But I appreciate you for explaining that because I understand using overtime in that manner. And so I don't see another way around that flexibility even in the future.
And when you look at the grand scheme of things in terms of the value of this contract, overtime is just only a very, very small fraction of what we do to maintain that type of reliability. And I want this body to bear in mind too, this contract is, I have the auditor to do this because I needed to understand that our contract management system is second to none. Also, the airlines that are responsible for paying for the system, 100%, they have oversight of what we do. And we have to present our budget to them annually and secure their approval and stuff. So there's multiple oversight of what we're doing. Were we perfect in this contract execution? No, there are some gaps that we are working and filling in right now.
And I'm speaking as a person that walks sometimes, because I think the airport
Love
has
it.
the most beautiful museum in probably airports if you take the walk. But we need the plane train. You said 99.6% of our people use it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Mr. Bayadari.
Thank you.
Right. Ordinances for first read.
Mr. Chair, we need a motion to accept and file the audit report.
So moved by Juan, second by Lewis. Please open the vote on the motion to accept and file the auditor's report.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is accepted and filed. This takes us to our consent agenda. Section I, ordinance for first reading. Item number 3, 23O1469, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend the FY 2024 Airport Renewal and Extension Fund, Airport Passenger Facility Charge Fund, 2012A Bond General Airport Revenue Fund, 2012C Bond General Airport Revenue Fund, 2019A Non-AMT GARBs, 2019B AMT GARBs, 2019D Airport PFC Sublien Revenue Bond Fund, 2022A non-AMT GARBs, 2022B AMT GARBs, 2022C PFC non-AMT Bond Fund, and 2022D PFC AMT Bond Fund budgets by transferring to and from appropriations a total amount of $49,739,396.00 for reimbursement of the Airport Revenue and Extension Fund and Aviation Encumbrance Program and for other purposes. Item number 4, 23O1470, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an airport use and lease agreement with Lantam Airlines Peru S&A, doing business as Lantam Airlines Group at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for use under Airfield and Central Passenger Terminal Complex for an initial term of 5 years beginning November 1st, 2023, with options to renew for successive terms for 5 years through June 30th, 2036, and for other purposes. Item number 5, 23O1471, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into the Central Passenger Terminal Complex Support Space lease agreement with various concessionaires and airline support companies for storage and office support spaces located at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, waiving lease of city-owned real property requirements, waiving contained in Section 2-1547, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provisions and for other purposes. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section J, Ordinance for second reading. Item number 6, 23O1437, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Resolution 17R 3506 to clarify the agreements authorized to be executed thereunder in support of the Piedmont Road Widening Project, to ratify the execution of the contract for acquisition of the right-of-way with the Georgia Department of Transportation for the project, to ratify services rendered under such contract and for other purposes.
First, I want to ask if HODOT, DC Moore, do you have any comment on this legislation? Yep. Ms. Norwood.
Yes, I'm looking at the schematic from Kimley Horn, and I need to talk with the department about whether or not it's coming into Tuxedo Park, as I'm looking at this very small schematic. So I would ask that we hold this until I can get the answers on how it's impacting my own neighborhood.
Okay. Going once, going twice for HODOT to comment on this. Otherwise, we have a motion to hold before us. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on the motion to hold.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held in committee. Mr. Chair, we need an amendment for item number 7. The amendment makes a minor change to the caption.
So moved. Do you want to read in the amended caption?
After the amendment has been approved.
Motion to amend. Second by Amos. Please open the vote on the motion to amend the caption for item number 7.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item has been amended. The amendment adds minor language to clarify the placement of 9 parking signs. Item number 7, 23-01444, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone as amended by Transportation Committee. An ordinance requesting the mayor as designated to install no parking signs to restrict parking on the north side of Peyton Woods Trail southwest from Cativo Drive to 180 feet west of Cativo Drive to waive City Code Section 150-92 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, council members. Alan Smith, Deputy Commissioner, ATL DOT, TIM Division. The department supports the legislation.
Great. I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item has been amended. ATL DOT has notified me that they have clarification on Councilmember Norwood's inquiry. Can we go back to item number 6 and reconsider the motion to hold?
Well, I think it was held because Ms. Norwood wants to have a conversation with DOT.
They've agreed to have a conversation with me, so we can hold it, and I can take it off of held at full council if we've come to a resolution. But right now, I wanted to held, please.
Okay.
That takes us to...
Yeah, we can't pull it off of committee at full council. So I would say this, if you want to move it forward today or this week,
I wanted held. I wanted held. I had a neighborhood that went hysterical with the last Kimley Horn schematic on this very same intersection, and getting this that I just received, not that it wasn't sent, but just that I just opened it up this morning. I do not want an entire neighborhood saying, I can't believe you allowed this to go through when we all dug our heels in and stopped all of that cut-through traffic accelerating in our single-family neighborhood.
Great. So that issue, as far as I'm concerned, is between Ms. Norwood and ATL DOT. Y'all can have that conversation. Ms. Overstreet.
I just want to know, were you informed at all? Like, did they discuss? Does it include Tuxedo Park? That's first. Does it?
This schematic shows it coming down Habersham Road. That's what we fought before, because that's just stacking cars in our neighborhood and making our 15 to 20,000 cars a day on our 2-lane roads even worse. All it does is to stack them in our neighborhood versus in the business district, which is Piedmont Road. So I want to make sure that I am not selling out my own neighborhood, and I do mean that in that term.
Yeah, and listen, I understand that. I'm just trying to make sure that we are having conversations, like they're coming to us about our streets. That's all. I just want to know that you know about that ahead of time.
Mr. Lewis, you good? Okay. All right, so that's held. I will, for historical context, I'll remind everyone that Ms. Norwood, not too long ago, fought the law department and won. So ATL DOT, I wish you luck in that conversation with Ms. Norwood.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Anderson Bomar.
Good morning. I'll start and then, okay. Marcia Anderson Bomar, Interim Deputy Commissioner of Engineering for Atlanta DOT. So this is a project what the CID is doing. And right-of-way acquisition is in progress right now. This is necessary to continue and move forward along with that. And I think the law department also has some input they'd like to provide.
That's fine. I still think Ms. Norwood needs to sit down with ATL DOT to kind of get on the same page or not, and then we'll address it. It's currently held in committee. Law, do you have a reflection?
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, Stephanie Grant, Law Department, just want to point out that this is cleanup legislation from something that was already approved in 2017. The project is moving forward, and I am completely understanding of Ms. Norwood's desire to speak with ATL DOT to get a better understanding of where the project parameters are, but just wanted to point out that this
agreement has already been approved. Right-of-way acquisition is currently underway, and the city owes GDOT a right-of-way acquisition certification. And so this legislation is to authorize the city to sign the right-of-way acquisition certification for GDOT.
Okay, that's great. I mean, we approved it in 2017. We're 2023. It can wait another cycle or two while Ms. Norwood has that conversation. Yeah. All right, item 8.
Mr. Chair, this item will need to be, a substitute will need to be brought forward. The substitute clarifies the purpose of the legislation, attaches the revised project management agreement, updates the funding amount, including the Council District 3 funding allocation and account information, and it changes the caption.
Okay, so I'll move to bring forward the substitute. Second by Amos. Please open the vote on that motion.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you. Item number 8, 23R3969, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos as substituted by Transportation Committee, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a project management agreement with the PATH Foundation, doing business as PATH for the West Side 2 Trail project on the behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, an amount not to exceed $910,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion approved by Amos, second by Faroki. Please open the vote on item number 8 as substituted.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. Mr. Chair, may we take items number 9 and 10 together as a block? These are for the installation of traffic calming devices.
Please do.
Item number 9, 23R3971, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis requesting the mayor or designee to install traffic calming devices on Ira Street Southwest from University Avenue Southwest to Gardner Street Southwest and for other purposes. Item number 10, 23R3972, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Lewis requesting the mayor or designee to install traffic calming devices on Smith Street Southwest from University Avenue Southwest to Rockwell Street Southwest and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
Alan Smith, ATL DOT Deputy Commissioner, TIM Division. The department supports this legislation.
Lewis, would you like to make the motion? Motion to approve by Lewis, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 11, 23R3971, a resolution by Councilmember Jason Dozier requesting the mayor's designee to install traffic calming devices on Epworth Street Southwest from Campbellton Road Southwest to Avon Avenue Southwest and for other purposes. This item will need to be substituted. The substitute adds some revisions throughout the legislation and removes the fourth whereas clause.
Great. I'll move to bring forth the substitute. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Mr. Smith, any comment on this one?
The department supports this legislation.
Great. I will move to approve as substituted. Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. Mr. Chair, the department requests to take items number 12 and 13 together as a block.
Yeah, I want to pause for a second. We just lost Mr. Curtis, who made public comment earlier. Do y'all have comment on why this crosswalk has not been implemented or repainted where he was hit?
Right now, we are inspecting that location. Our engineering team is taking a look at the concerns stated previously. Right now, we don't have a plan of action right now, but we are looking into the best path forward.
Okay. I'll leave it to Ms. Norwood to stay on top of y'all, but it's been 6+ months and this has been flagged, and it's not to mention, I got plenty of crosswalks in my district that are flagged that haven't been repainted or painted. So seems to be a institutional bureaucratic problem that we need to solve, but I mean, this is a high-profile one that should be an easy fix. Ms. Norwood.
Well, and it's unusual because you have the Shepherd Spinal Center and Piedmont Hospital right there. You have the Beltline getting ready to come in at Bennett Street. And so if there was ever a place in a hospital zone where you need, if you have a disability or you are visiting a patient at one of those facilities and you want to cross the street, you ought to be able to do that. And with this new senior high-rise, so what's at that corner is a high-rise for elderly individuals. So the confluence of all of those criteria ought to jump this to the top of the queue.
Mr. Lewis, then we'll get back to legislation.
And I apologize for speaking in your district. 2 weeks ago, I actually had to use it. And so it was just so odd. I was on my scooter, and it was just so odd that there was no way to cross there, and I had to come back down to where the store, the store is. So, but yeah, that it just looks weird. And we all know that it looks like some crosswalks should just be there. And we'll get back to legislative items. I'll meet with Mr. Solomon about that, because I'm thinking that's a job we can train regular Atlantans to do. People can paint white stripes on the street.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Items 12 and 13 is a block.
Item number 12, 23R 4023, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute an encroachment agreement with 250 MLK Owner LLC for the purpose of constructing a pedestrian plaza that will connect the Centennial Olympic Park Drive Bridge and span above the Elliott Street right-of-way between a proposed new residential tower to be located at 305-327 Mitchell Street Southwest and Centennial Olympic Park Drive, and for other purposes. Item number 13, 23R 4024, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute an encroachment agreement with John and Denise Detting Major, owners of property located at 1524 Peachtree Battle Avenue Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia 30327, for the purpose of allowing the homeowners to tie into the city sewer line by crossing into the Peachtree Battle Avenue right-of-way, and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
The department supports the legislation.
Perfect. I'll move to approve these two items. Yeah. Second by Amos. Please open the vote on items 12 and 13.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable. Item number 14, 23R 4025, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the acceptance of communications support sponsorship for the Atlanta Streets Alive program from Propel ATL Incorporated, a nonprofit entity, on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, and to authorize the mayor as designee to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Propel ATL Incorporated, further describing the sponsorship and for other purposes.
Great. Ms. Smoot-Madison.
Good morning, Council. Betty Smoot-Madison, Mobility Planning Director with ATL DOT. This legislation is to formalize an agreement that between ATL DOT and Propel ATL for Propel ATL to support our efforts with Atlanta Streets Alive and provide communication activities such as branding, marketing, social media, website management. This legislation will also allow Propel to seek cost sponsorships for their support in those activities.
Great. Very excited about this. I'll move to approve. Mr. Wan.
So I know that we had in our budget approved $200,000 for this effort. Is all of that $200 going to Propel Atlanta for this purpose, or what's the breakdown of that allocation?
No, there are no monies out of that $200,000 that's going to Propel. They are actually providing these support activities to us at no cost, but they are planning to seek their own sponsorships to supplement those activities.
Okay, that's good to know. Appreciate that in terms of this paper. So how do we get more information about the $200,000 budget allocation and what those costs are going to cover?
We can provide a breakdown to council.
Okay. I'd like to make that a condition of this by Tuesday, just because there's been some questions raised by the community about that funding and what it's going towards. Just to make sure that there's not an expectation on Propel or someone else to fund things that we are definitely funding.
Yep.
So,
Can that be provided by next Monday or next Tuesday's meeting?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll, I'll amend my motion to move forward on condition as articulated by Councilmember Wan. Mr. Lewis.
we're just thinking about Propel's a nonprofit. Why do we need them for social media, for marketing that stuff when we have a communications team here?
We really wanted to maintain the relationship that we have Propel. As you know, they stood up, organized, and managed this event for the last 10 years. And so they have a lot of that background information, as well as a lot of the branding that they've used, the social media that they already had stood up from previously. They wanted to continue maintaining that, and that was the type of support that they were interested in providing. And so we really wanted to maintain that relationship and in that capacity.
I'm just thinking about city funds as a former communicator, and just knowing the effort, some of the stuff that it takes to put into social media posts and stuff. I know we got a big staff here, but I'll thank you.
And we're doing our own as well. It will be paired with the activities that they're doing. But they've stood up a whole entire website for us as well for this Streets Alive.
We have a motion to move forward on condition, as articulated by Councilor Juan, for that information from ATL-DOT. Is there a second? Second by Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on condition. Item number 1523R 4026, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as needed, actually amendment number 1, the contract listed herein, general generator maintenance and on-call services at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport on behalf of the Department of Aviation to identify each contractor with an A and B designation. Agreement A, Power and Energy Services Incorporated. Agreement B, Taylor Sudden Services Incorporated, and to add the Department of Enterprise Asset Management as an authorized user with funding in an amount not to exceed $100,000.00. All contract will be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
And aviation.
Good morning, Michael Smith, Deputy General Manager, Department of Aviation. As the caption says, this provides an A and B designation for the 2 contractors that we have that provide O&M services for our generators. It also adds Deem as an authorized user to our contract.
I'll move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote on item 15.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 1623R 4027, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order funding amount not to exceed $9,600,000.00 for use under 2 quality assurance material testing, subsurface investigation, and special inspections contracts for contract number 1, FC 9777-A, Terracon Oasis Joint Venture, and contract 2, FC 977-B, ATL-QA, a joint venture to provide inspection, subsurface investigations, and testing during construction of various airport projects for the Department of Aviation on a task order basis. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Aviation.
Good morning, Tom Nasalki, Assistant General Manager for Planning and Development at the Department of Aviation. As you're aware, we build or reconstruct numerous buildings, pavements, and other infrastructure each year. In fiscal year 2023, we did approximately $640 million worth of work, and for fiscal year 2024, we're looking at doing even more. During construction of these facilities, the contractor must perform his or her own quality control of the work. As best practice, we then follow up with our own quality assurance of that contractor's work. You could view it as a form of trust but verify on aviation's part. This legislation will fund the work of our 2 on-call quality assurance teams for fiscal year 2024.
Juan.
I have to ask, have they ever found anything that contradicted what the original projects were?
It's not so much contradicting. Sometimes it's just to confirm. If for example, if a batch of concrete for some reason doesn't attain the required strength, we will be able to confirm that. Based on that, we can then make certain decisions about does something have to be ripped out or could we accept that. Again, it's really kind of an informal insurance policy that we just view as a best practice.
Move to approve. Second by Juan. Please open the vote on item number 16.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 17, 23R4028, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to exercise the first renewal option for agreement listed herein, sanitary sewer lift stations operations and maintenance with Sierra Construction Company Incorporated at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on behalf of the Department of Aviation for a term of 2 years effective October 19, 2023 through October 18, 2025, an amount not to exceed $1,657,675.00. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Mr. Smith.
Michael Smith, Department of Aviation. Again, this is a first renewal of a sewer O&M on-call agreement for maintenance. We have 13 sanitary sewers lifts and 1 stormwater sewer lift that we maintain. This agreement was original 3-year agreement with 2 2-year options, and this is the first renewal.
I will move to approve. Second by Overstreet. Please open the vote on item 17.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 18, 23R4029, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor to execute a change order with C.W. Matthews Contracting Company Incorporated for project numbers listed herein, taxiway pavement replacement 2022 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, an amount not to exceed $4 million. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Aviation.
Tom Nasalki, Department of Aviation. We have a very safe airfield. However, there are 3 taxiway segments that the FAA wants us to realign. One of these is the segment of taxiway between the general aviation ramp. It's a segment of taxiway Delta between the general aviation ramp and taxiway Alpha. And we want to execute this change order to the taxiway pavement replacement 2022 contract with C.W. Matthews and have them construct this taxiway segment realignment.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Lewis. Please open the votes. The FAA.
The vote is open.
We say how high.
Would everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. One last closing remark is on Thursday, September 21st. We'll have a field trip for all those who are interested to the Luckstone Quarry at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is where a lot of the concrete comes from for runways and other things at the airport. So if folks are interested in seeing a rock quarry and concrete, you're welcome to join us.
What is this?
September 21st. So we got about a month. Yeah, Thursday, September 21st, 2 to 4 p.m. Mr. Lewis.
And so I just want to make sure I announce my Christmas in September event that we're having. It's the 2nd annual Christmas in September event with the District 12 office in Caring for Others. Right over at, I know I was talking about Brown Mill Road because I got to drive down it all the time. 3537 Brown Mill Road, Caring for Others. We're going to be taking care of all of the kids in our district with Christmas in September. You ain't got to wait till December. Pull up on Councilman Lewis in September. Thank you.
All right. Ho, ho, ho. This meeting is adjourned.